there, Stefanie. Thank you so much for coming in. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Wow, so I have been giving tours here for about a little over 2 years. I've lived in town for 28 years.
Oh, wow.
So I have a love of the town because I've been here, but there's a branch of my family that also goes back in Concord to 1639. So I have this other connection. I actually, at my house, I have my portrait of my great-great-grandmother who grew up here. So I have a really strong connection to Concord. But I'm also involved with the Concord Players. I'm involved with the Friends of the Concord Free Public Library. I do Concord Carlisle Adult and Community Ed. So I really have been involved in a lot of the things that are important to me.
How did you get into giving tours? I know you talked about you have some family history here, but what was the process of it? Did you have jobs beforehand that kind of made you think about history tours, or?
Well, I have been a long-time performer. I've performed on stage for many years. I love performing, and I am very outgoing, and it's a great way to meet people. So for a long time, I have looked at the people who worked at the visitor center and thought, that'd be kind of cool. You get to meet people, you get to talk about your town, and you kind of get to be a performance artist, especially if you go out on tours.
Yeah.
So I decided I'd like to give that a try. I knew that there was a town history class you needed to take, and again, because I work at adult ed, I knew even more about it, and I finally decided one day to just bite the bullet and take the class and get the background in history. And the more that I've done it, the more history I've learned, the more fascinating it is. And we live in this great place with not just Revolutionary War history, but literary history. There's so much here that I am so enthusiastic about that I love sharing that with everybody else. So for me, it's really cool.
The Concord Visitor Center offers a bunch of different kinds of tours: specialty tours, the daily historical tours, bus tours. Which of these tours is your favorite kind to give?
Personally, I love the Women of Concord tour because I feel like the women in history get very short shrift. There's a lot that you don't know. You don't hear about the names of the women, you hear about the names of the men. And I think it's a really good opportunity to highlight those women. Louisa May Alcott she's so awesome. The more that I learn about her, the more incredible she is as a person, never mind a woman. And the other tour that I really like giving is the Amble tour. So it's the Emerson Thoreau Amble that goes between Emerson's house and the site of Thoreau's cabin at Walden Pond, because it's just so beautiful. But the bus tours are also cool because a lot of times the kids who come in here are so enthusiastic. I love that. They're very engaged.
Like all places, Concord has some pretty tough history, especially with the African American and Indigenous tours. So what is the approach that you take when describing the more difficult parts of Concord's past?
Well, I think that history is history, right? You have to acknowledge that all of it happened. So as we talk about the Indigenous people, or the African Americans, what you try to do is be respectful of who they were as people, what they were doing here, what worked against them, why certain things did not work for them, and why it turned out so badly for them in the case of the Indigenous people. You like to acknowledge what our ancestors did.
You've been working here for 2 years, as you said. What are some of the changes that you've seen in the visitor center in those past 2 years?
Well, I've seen us really hone our tours. So we've really looked at what people want to know and what they're asking about, and then created really specific tours. We've also developed the tours more fully so that they are more consistent across tour guides, which I think is important. I think no matter who you get as a tour guide, you should get the same basic experience. So I think we've done that, and I think that we've been really responsive to making sure that we address a wide range of interests and people who come here. Because that's the whole thing. How do you get the story across? I think we've done a much better job. We've really improved the number of people that we have giving tours and the types of tours that we give. And it's a little bit more structured so that people can get them. So that's what I think has changed a lot. I think it's a much better experience now than it has been. And not that it wasn't wonderful before, but I think we've continued to grow and improve on it. So.
But what is your favorite fun fact to tell on tours?
My favorite fun fact? Well, probably the fact that one of them is the fact that Louisa May Alcott ran for fun, because I think or ran for exercise, because I think that's something people don't know. And then I like to tell people about the Reflection Circle, which is an area up in Walden Woods, and I don't know if you've been there.
I have
but
been there actually.
Oh, that's
it's beautiful,
nice.
Yeah.
It is. I think it's such a wonderful and peaceful place, but it is such a nice paean to nature and the importance of the natural world. And it has quotes from all of these different famous people having to do with nature. So it's got Rachel Carson and Emily Dickinson and John Muir. So it has such a wide variety of people and their quotes that I find it a really peaceful, wonderful place. So I'd love to tell people about that.
The history of Concord is only part of what makes this town so special. So what is something not necessarily historical that you consider a must-see when visiting Concord?
Gosh, that's hard. I think Great Meadows is one of the really hidden treasures here in Concord because it's not necessarily historical, but if you go there at dusk, you will see an amazing amount of wildlife. There's birds and there's mammals in the water, and it's just gorgeous. But it's not a place that people would think to go. And any of our trails, this is the other thing, is we have an amazing number of wooded trails all around Concord that I've been lucky enough to walk through, and it's just so beautiful and peaceful. There's October Farm, there's Fairyland, there's Fairhaven Bay. There's so many places to go to be in the woods and to enjoy it that's not just about history. It's just really about the geology of the area.
How would you describe your tour style, and why do you lead your tours in that way?
So my tour style is narrative. I am telling a story. I'm a linear person anyway, so I kind of like to start from the beginning of the story and go to the end of the story. So I like to tell the whole Revolutionary War history, from the founding of the town of Concord all the way to and through that first battle before I go to the literary history. So, and I like to tell it as a story because I think it brings it to life. I think the cool thing about coming to any kind of a history place, but especially to Concord, is that you're walking in the place where these things happened. I can look up in a book and get the dates and the names and the battles and the Stamp Act and when that all happened. The cool thing about being here is to imagine that you were here at that time and what it would have been like had you been here. So my goal is to bring it to life, to make it fascinating and interesting, to make the history fresh and make it sound so relevant to today and connect it to today. Because that's the key to understanding history, and why you learn history is so that you can bring it forward to the present and figure out how it impacts you and what choices you make now. So I like that narrative style. I'm about telling stories. I'm about making it come to life.
I know that you often do bus tours, which are typically geared towards a younger audience, typically school-age kids. So do you change your style? Are there certain things that you modify for kind of teaching to a younger audience?
I try to get more interaction, and then sometimes I will try to connect it to what is in their towns. The kids who have a lot of interest, I'll say, but you also come from a place with history. What's the history in your place? And then you can sort of make that connection of, we all have history where we come from. Take a look at where you're from and think about what brought it to where it is now. So try to make it all relevant. Anytime I have visual aids to show with that age group, if you've got either pictures or a powder horn or musket balls, that's great to share because they like that. But it's also keeping it simple and not giving them too many extraneous details. Again, more about bringing it to life and making it interesting, and this is what we're going to do.
That was my last question. So do you have any last thoughts? Anything else you want to share?
I think what I would want people to know is that the Visitor Center is a great resource. So even if you are not right at the Visitor Center, you're down at the North Bridge and you don't know something, you can call the Visitor Center and get an answer. And the people here know a ton. So using it as a point of reference and an information space is key. And knowing that you can count on it, because whenever you're in a new town, I love going to visitor information because they're the people who know about the town. And that's what this Visitor Center is. And everybody who is here has a passion for the town and a passion for history. So all happy to help. So I think that's really cool.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Have a nice rest of your day.
Thank you.